everybody, welcome back. I hope you're all doing really well, and welcome to my spoiler-free review for A Scatter of Light by Malinda Lo. So first off, thank you very much to the author and the publisher for letting me have an advanced digital copy of this through NetGalley. Malinda Lo is one of my favourite authors, so I was really excited that I got to get to A Scatter of Light a couple of months early. So obviously in exchange, this is a spoiler-free review. All my opinions are completely my own, you know, I'm not getting paid to say nice things about this or anything. These are completely my own opinions in exchange for this free review, for this free book. So the synopsis of this book is: Arya Tang-West was looking forward to a summer on Martha's Vineyard with her best friends, one last round of sand and sun before college, but after a graduation party goes wrong, Arya's parents exile her to California to stay with her grandmother, artist Joan West. Arya expects boredom, but what she finds is Steph Nichols, her grandmother's gardener. Soon Arya is second-guessing who she is and what she wants to be, and a summer that once seemed lost becomes unforgettable, for Arya, for her family, and the working-class queer community Steph introduces her to. It's the kind of summer that changes a life forever. So if you don't know about my history with sort of Malinda Lo books, I read her Cinderella retelling, Ash, years ago, and I really enjoyed it in school. And then when I found out it was a prequel to that, Huntress, I read that and I absolutely adored Huntress. Like, you know, it was absolutely amazing, and I actually think I like him more than I like Ash. And I've been meaning to sort of get back into some of her books, and then earlier in the year I read last night at Telegraph Club, which is a queer historical romance set in San Francisco following these two young girls finding their sexuality and falling in love. I do have a spoiler-free review for that one, by the way, if you want to go check out my thoughts. And I absolutely fell in love with last night at the Telegraph Club, so when I found that The Scatter of Light was kind of a follow-up to that almost in a sense, I absolutely knew I had to get my hands on it. And last night at the Telegraph Club had also just solidified Malinda Lo as like one of my favourite auto-buy authors. So I was so excited to finally get to this book. And yeah, it's really great. It's another hit from Malinda Lo. This is such a gentle coming-of-age story following our main character Arya as she explores her sexuality, learns new things about herself in a summer that wasn't quite what she had planned. And I just love this one too. It's not quite at the heights that last night at the Telegraph Club was, but it's up there. So it's a very simple plot, you know. Arya goes to stay with her grandmother, you know, she meets her gardener Steph and kind of gets involved with a new group of friends that's entirely unlike her school friends. There's a really great dynamic as well between her and her grandmother, and you also get a really good sense to her relationship with both of her parents and how that's affected her up until now. I did really like the sort of sub-theme of family and familial relationships in this book. There was a lot of small plot points and themes that in this book that all kind of weave together to form this lovely coming of age story for Arya. Like, there's a lot going on, but it's not so overwhelming that, you know, you feel they're disconnected or they're not, you know, one thing's taking up too much space. You know, you've got the romance, you have Arya's understanding of herself, you have the science versus art kind of theming, you have her relationship with her grandmother, you have a relationship with her parents, you have her questioning her friendship with her school friends and stuff, and it kind of all just comes together to form this really great, as I said, coming of age story for our main character. And it just works so incredibly well. I did love the idea of like two opposites finding balance, you know, with this there's a sort of sub-theme of almost, you know, art versus science. It did almost feel like a metaphor for kind of what Arya is really going through and how she comes to terms with, like, you know, her discovering bisexuality. You know, I've already used the word gentle to describe this book as well, but it's definitely a great word to express the general feeling of this story. You know, in the same way that Telegraph Club moved along at a slow pace that wasn't too overwhelming, you know, A Scatter of Light as well is just perfectly balanced and isn't boring in the slightest. It's a character-driven story, definitely, and I think that it just moves along at such a relaxing pace as well. Like, you know, you really feel like you can just take this book at your own pace and in your own time and enjoy it page by page, you know. Despite the tensions, like later on in the book, like it is just such a gentle book, and that's one thing I really love about Malinda Lo's romance books that she's been writing recently. I do really enjoy them. Arya is a really great main character. You're really given a good insight into what's been going on at school, what's been going on with her family, so you kind of understand the frame of mind that she's in and how she kind of gets to where she is by the end of this book. She's sweet, good fun, has a really good relationship with her grandmother. I love the opening chapter kind of explaining why, you know, explaining what she thought of her grandmother when she was younger, how that's kind of, and then, because that kind of leans into how that affects her during the course of this book. And even just like, you know, why she refers to her grandmother by her first name and kind of what that then means for how her grandmother treats her and how who she can be around her grandmother and stuff. I really, really loved their relationship and their dynamic. You know, I really liked that Joan really did treat Arya like an adult and stuff when all of her parents were treating her like a child. Arya's also like incredibly flawed as well. We all know that we love to see that in a character. You know, how she approaches things with Steph and how it all plays out is incredibly messy, and it's almost selfish on Arya's part. But you kind of understand why she does what she does. It's a difficult situation where she has to choose between whether to listen to her heart or her head. And with all the context from her family and what happened at school behind that, you do kind of understand why she makes the decisions she does, despite knowing the consequences. And I think that's a really interesting narrative to follow. You know, where last night at the Telegraph Club was, you know, a completely innocent relationship, this is messy and it hurts other people, and she's getting involved with someone that she really shouldn't. Because Steph is already in an established relationship with someone who Arya does meet and forms a bit of a friendship with. But she kind of barrels into it with Steph not really caring about that because she's thinking of herself and thinking of what she's going through. Steph's a really great love interest as well. You know, she's fun and outgoing, has a really great personality, and she's a good match for Arya. Despite the fact that she's in a relationship, you see the connection that she and Arya have together very quickly, and you can see the struggle she has with wanting to stay with her current partner for loyalty, but also kind of what Arya offers for her, and you watch them move forward into the mess that they both create, but you kind of understand how they got there. You know, it's just an incredibly well written, their relationship, I think. I think one of the things that this book is maybe missing though is just that little more discussion into the whole art aspect of the story. You know, since her grandmother is an artist, this has had a huge impact on her as a child. And whilst Arya does move on to be a little bit more science minded and stuff, you know, I love how the science stuff, and you know, just side note, I love how the science stuff helps her like reform a connection with her dead grandfather. You know, I liked how it kept him in the narrative since, you know, she keeps him in the narrative, and especially since she's spending time with her grandmother, you know, and he's still important to her grandmother. So I like how they kind of keep him important to the narrative despite the fact that he's dead the entire time of the book. But anyway, yeah. Since Arya is surrounded by her grandmother's work and has some really interesting conversations about like abstract art with Joan, I feel like there just isn't quite enough, it just doesn't feel quite as important to the narrative as the conclusion would perhaps have you think. And I feel like there's just something missing that would help it tie back into the kind of everything a little bit better, you know. It could be a really good like metaphor for her discovering bisexuality, or so I feel like there's just something, a little something missing just to kind of tie it back in, because it definitely takes a backbench and then comes in as this really important bit later on in the book, and you're like, okay, I kind of feel like it just needed to be brought to the forefront a little bit more than it was for this to feel a little bit tighter. But that's kind of my only really nitpick. Overall, it's just a really, really great read. Again, just demonstrating that great feeling of finding community in a queer space, and how safe Arya feels to discuss her evolving thoughts and things she's discovering about herself. It's a really bittersweet story too, with both Arya and Steph making harmful decisions, leaving the relationship on a bitter note towards the end. That makes a lot of sense for what the story is trying to tell you about these characters. Just, yeah, another banger from Malinda Lo. And some fun tie-ins to Last Night at the Telegraph Club. So if you did enjoy that book, you know, you do, it's not, I wouldn't really call this a sequel, but it definitely does tie in. So you can read one or both without having to read the other, but I would say if you do enjoy Last Night at the Telegraph Club, definitely check this one out, because you get a few hints as to what happens to Lily and Kath at the end of their story. Yeah, if you're a fan of that, I'd definitely pick this up. It's just a fantastic contemporary romance and coming of age story, and beautifully written again, like I said, and again just paced in such a lovely way as well. It's such a great summer read, and I just cannot recommend it enough. Thank you very much for watching. A Scatter of Light comes out, I believe, on the 4th of October, so definitely mark down in your calendars for when that comes out. If you go away and decide to read it, and definitely do come back and let me know what you thought of A Scatter of Light, and definitely feel free to go check out my spoiler-free review for Last Night at the Telegraph Club. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that. Have you read any of Malinda Lo's other books? Definitely let me know below down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. If you've reached the end of this video, feel free to leave a like and feel free to subscribe. I post 2 videos a week. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.